This is David with High Performance Stoicism. I want to talk to you about this idea of philosophy, which is given to us from the Stoic philosopher Seneca. He says, philosophy is the cultivation of wisdom. Now, I understand that a number of you are going to say, well, that sounds right to me. That's what philosophy should be. What's the big deal? Well, hang in there. I'm going to show you what the big deal is. But others of you are going to say, I don't know about that idea about philosophy because what I learned of philosophy was much different. It was about a number of very abstract theories. It was about analyzing statements. It was about making arguments, showing inconsistencies, and trying to find what underlying assumptions were behind a given philosophy. Well, I'm going to tie it all together for you. But in order to do that, we have to talk about this idea of cultivation. So, what does it mean to cultivate? It means to help something grow, it means to foster the growth of something. And when we talk about cultivation, we're talking about growing crops, taking them from seed to their fruition until we get some plants. Now, what does it have to do with Stoicism? Think about this. The Stoics say that we are to live according to nature. That is the goal of life. But Seneca says nature has laid the foundations and planted the seeds of virtue in us all. So that means each of us has the seeds of all the virtues within inside of us. That means we have the seed of courage, prudence, temperance, and justice. We just need to cultivate it. Well, let's talk about their view of wisdom. There are two definitions of wisdom that the Stoics leave to us. One of them is wisdom is a systematic knowledge of divine and human affairs. And another definition of wisdom they have is wisdom is the exercise of fitting expertise. Okay, now we're putting a lot of things out there. I'm going to tie them together, and you're going to see how important this idea of wisdom. Philosophy is the cultivation of wisdom. So let's talk about the first thing we're cultivating. We're cultivating learning Stoicism. We're reading Stoicism. We're trying to understand it. And the reason we're doing that is because Stoic doctrines are the basis of the knowledge that is there in the wisdom, right? The wisdom of knowledge, the knowledge of human and divine affairs, that's there in the content of Stoicism. So when you're studying Stoicism and you come across things like at some point in your timeline, it comes to an end. You shall die. Something in Stoicism that says you are a part of the divine whole. Something in Stoicism that says there's a divinity within me. So there's some part of me that is divine. And when Stoicism says some things are up to us and some things are not up to us, all of this is the content that we're working on, we're trying to learn, because ultimately the Stoics say knowledge of human affairs is going to consist in a lot of these doctrines. In other words, I become knowledgeable about what's going on in my mind by learning these doctrines, and then in turn, the more I learn about myself, the more I learn about what happens between two people, two friends, what's going on. Well, I'm going to take my knowledge of a bunch of things in Stoicism, a bunch of doctrines, and say, okay, here's what I believe is going on. And that's how we ultimately get knowledge of divine and human affairs for the Stoics. Now, cultivation number two is these are not just beliefs that we say, okay, I get it. And if someone quizzes me on it, I can say, oh, some things are up to me and some things are not up to me. No, I am supposed to dye my soul in the color of the wisdom that the Stoics give. In other words, Epictetus says, Marcus says, write out the doctrines that you want to cultivate wisdom with, that you want to bring into your mind to cultivate those seeds of wisdom within you. In other words, it can't just be that I know what the Stoics say. It has to be that over time, I start to have the perspective that the Stoic does, that the sage does about what's going on. So if two friends of mine are fighting, I'm recognizing what's in my power and what's not in my power. I'm also looking at human nature in both of them and saying, okay, what is the best way to handle this? What is prudent? So when you start to write down certain Stoic doctrines that are fundamental, these are techniques that I call conditioning techniques. That's to move your mind toward wisdom. So as you can see already, the Stoic view is directly opposed to the view that wisdom is just experience. There are certain doctrines that you have to know, and you have to cultivate them in your mind. So, the third thing that you're going to cultivate as you're moving toward wisdom is what I call situational techniques. Now, these are pretty popular. These are the techniques that we're in a given situation. How do I handle it? Here's one that Epictetus gives, which I don't hear discussed much, and that is if you're going to the door of someone important, believe they will not be there. Okay, so I go for a walk. There's someone important I want to talk to, let's say a philosopher who I really respect. I'm going to just assume that person is not home. Now, why do I do this technique? Well, part of the reason I do this technique is it's not bad if the person is not home. And most people would think it would be bad if they're not home. That's number one. Number two, remember what upsets us is not the things themselves, the events, but our judgments about them. So by having that thought, not thinking they will be there, but thinking they won't be there, I'm cultivating the seed of virtue within myself so I don't get upset. Okay, so number four, and this is in some ways, I think the big one that most people are missing these days. You want to start to make all your actions done in the light of the Stoic wisdom you're learning. In other words, you want to, and one way to do this is you want to recall the doctrines that you think are relevant and important for a given situation. And so if I go into a social situation that I'm shy and it will be awkward for me, I want to go in there thinking, okay, these people these people are going to ignore me, just using Epictetus's technique. Or if I try to talk to people, it might not go well, it might go well. In other words, being open-minded about it. So those are some of the ways in which you are going to cultivate the seeds within you to take what are just the seeds of virtue and take them to the point that you actually develop virtue. Now, there's one thing and one more point in this that I think a lot of people miss. It's in there in Marcus, but given what we've said so far, you're going to see how it's connected. If the seeds of virtue are within me, then the seed of wisdom is within me. That means the seed of prudence, we could also put it, is going to guide me better in any situation than just by going what I normally think. And so Marcus says in different places that we have a guiding spirit within us. Our guiding spirit is our mind. And so that's a little tricky because the Stoics say a lot of things about our minds, but one of the things they say is it's the guiding spirit is within me. And so what you have to do to cultivate wisdom in yourself directly is no matter the situation you're entering, try to be quiet and let that guiding spirit speak to you or ask it, okay, spirit, what should I do in this situation? And what you're going to find is you have resources within you to make much better decisions than you've made on a consistent basis. And if you just go out for a couple days in a row and try this, and everything you do say, okay, guiding spirit, what should I do? You'll start to see what the Stoics are talking about. So, one thing to keep in mind as we go through Stoic practices, reading Stoicism, doing the different kinds of techniques I described, the Stoics are once again against the idea that wisdom is experience. Somehow everybody will get it just by being experienced. No, 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 no. Instead, you have to learn the doctrines that are going to make up your worldview over time because you're going to learn them, you're going to practice believing them, you're going to act in the light of them. And here's a key thing: if the things we're talking about are true, if it's true that some things are up to us and some things are not up to us, if each of us is a part of the divine whole, if everybody is going to die, then you're going to see over time that it's going to mesh with your life in such ways that your soul will become more and more harmonious with nature. So you fully cultivate the seeds of virtue and you become virtuous. That's it for today. Like, subscribe, tell me what you think, and we'll see you in the next video.